Hello, everyone. I'm Ma Yansong. I'm architect from China. I'm the one from far away. Um, uh, but today I feel Milano is very familiar because the fog. Is, um, what's different is so many people here today talking about the future. It's called a democracy. Um, but the future we're talking about is 25, 30 years later. We don't have that kind of discussion in China because we might have a discussion, but it will be about 5 years later, not 10 years. 10 years too far. 20 years, 30 years is really, really far. So we're really talking about 30 years ago, 30 years later. It's hard to imagine, but we must realize what the 30-year means. We have to think about 30 years ago in China, it's old China. You don't know anything about China 30 years ago. But within 30 years, things changed rapidly. That's the world today. You have to think about what's Japan, Tokyo look like 30 years later. You have to think about New York, how New York look like 30 years later. So we're talking about a really, really futuristic image for a city like Milan. So, for example, I flew 10 hours from China to Milan yesterday. But what if in 30 years later, it's not a dream. From Beijing to Milan, you can only spend 2 hours. Within two cities. That will totally change. Milan is not Milan today. The world is not the world today. We're not creating very local urban development. It's very easy for people communicate and travel around the world in the future. If we talk about 10, 20 years later, the flight today is too slow. I think everything will change. Talking about the internet, how long the history about the internet? But now I heard there's for this meeting, a lot of people are involved on the internet, on the social medias. So when we look at the city, we should have a different angle. That what if a lot of people are living on the internet, and people think the social media is a perfect platform for people. If you call democracy, that's a place everyone can have a space, everyone can give opinion, and everyone feel comfortable live on the internet. But in the traditional way, when we develop a city, we do discussion, and then we make a decision, and then we move forward. But what if we make a city in the future that look like a platform very similar to internet or to the social media that can constantly change. We build a framework, but this urban structure constantly responding to people or interactive to people. It's not like we are designing something and build something, but we build the organic structure. We build a system that can constantly change. I think that kind of a thing is required for us. When we talk about the new concept, the future, we should be open like that. But on the other hand, different world today has a different understanding about the democracy. In China, we also have a democracy. in the United States, everyone knows the election. This also results from democracy. We need to think about new ways how this democracy can lead us to something really unique. For example, we all talk about the green. We all talk about the sustainability. We all talk about environment. But what if, let's imagine, in 20 years, all the cities around the world will have enough green, enough public space, enough, there's all solar energy, regenerated electric energy, renewable energy around the world in the future. What we're talking about, all the cities will be green, public. Does that mean that every city will be the same? Does that mean that people live in the city still feel they belong to a place with a soul, with unique character? I think that's also important, that we have to trust the artistic creations. We have to trust the philosophers, the musicians, artists. Those people has futuristic vision. That requires the openness, because the future we're talking about, it might be different or very challenging or never been tested in other place. So that require very brave. For my understanding about future, in general, I think it's about emotional nature and humanity. Because if you look at the history, I think the classic urban ideas were more about religion, the classic towns. And the modern cities, a lot of power and capitalism. But the future city, I think, is about nature and humanity. Nature, when we talk about nature, I think I want to talk about emotional nature, artistic nature, nature that people can feel. Not only trees, not only green, not only about sustainability and energy. Just like I said, I think that's the standard in the future. It doesn't give a character or the uniqueness to a place. So I think the emotional connection between human and nature can lead us to a new urbanism in the future. Humanity is a very political world, but when you talking about human scale, when you talk about emotion, that's a new dimension about humanity. It's not only about the function, not only about the physical needs of a human being. It's about emotional. So we have to create a future cultural heritage. I think that's a challenge. So in the future, when we talk about cultural heritage, it's not only about the history, but also something from today, something from contemporary world. Thank you very much.